the most valuable asset is your time. There's a reason why we as a company do anywhere from 20 to 35K a day without me having involved. I go to some of the meetings and they're like, we don't need you, sir. And I'm like, I'm the CEO, right? Like, I don't even know some of the things anymore. I was talking to my brother who runs the sales team, like, dude, we don't do that anymore. I was like, oh, man, I'm getting out of it. But that is the beauty, right? And again, this is the business I wanted, right? You can build a business of however you want it. But I wanted to build it in a way where it's like, I'm completely hands off if I wanted to. All right, what's up? Welcome back. Today, I'm going to be consulting my friend Blake here. He actually shoots all the videos. He's the guy holding the camera, doing all the edits and all that beautiful stuff for us. So he's in a position where he's like a freelancer making about 5K a month. So today we're going to dissect his business. Super tactical, by the way, no bluff, no BS, just straight how, if we were to do this, or if I was to be in his shoes, how to go from currently where he's at about 5K a month to 20K a month as short-term growth, and then 100K a month eventually as well. So without further ado, Blake, welcome.
Nice to speak with you, Zarar. I was going to say meet you, but I've been working with you for a couple months here.
Yeah, he's here like every other day, right? We're here shooting in person.
Probably sees me more than he wants to.
There we go. So today, really, like, if you are watching, maybe you're like a freelancer and you feel like you have a couple clients, you have a couple things working for you, but how do you scale past the first, say, even if you're making anywhere from 2,000 to about like 10K a month? It's a very tricky spot to be in because you have some success, right? You're like, it's working, but then you're just like, what's the next step? Because you may feel like you're kind of being burned out, with the current stuff that you're doing. So Blake, if you don't mind me, I'm gonna ask some very direct questions if you're open to that, because one of the things that we believe here at Launch My Agency and one of our philosophies is we're very friendly. I'm sure you've been, hopefully you like us as as that, but we're not here to be your friends. And the reason for that is because when our clients and our business partners hire us, they're looking for real actionable results, right? So sometimes we do have to have some uncomfortable and hard conversations. So if I have your permission, Blake, my goal here is to just help you get to that level. So Blake, if you can give us a quick 30,000 foot overview of what you do, what your agency does, and what's kind of like, what are your goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you already introduced me, but just to backtrack, my name is Blake England, and I've spent over 12 years creating, shooting, editing content, right? Within the last 2 years, I got to the point where, I was working full-time for a large sales training organization, cranking out videos for Jeremy Lee Minor.
Jeremy Minor, all right.
So when I was working with him, obviously, I learned a lot more about sales, and I learned a lot more about the entrepreneur world from kind of like a macro view, because you always hear about it online. You see the videos like Grant Cardone, all these guys like traveling around, and you're like, you don't really get a grasp on it until you're thrown in the mix, right? And I think really when the idea kind of clicked for me to kind of like branch off and start my own agency was actually when I was working an event with Jeremy Minor. I believe it was ClickFunnels, which I'm sure you're aware of, right? When I was at that event, the whole time I was there, when I wasn't shooting videos for Jeremy, I had people approaching me, asking me about, do you have your own agency? Have you used ClickFunnels? And I was like, I haven't, but I don't see why I'm not. So I started learning more about it, and I realized I could take what I do, the video production for entrepreneurs, for business people, for people wanting to build their personal brand, but also who have value information, right? Whether it's courses, training methodologies, fitness coaches, all that. And I was like, okay, there's something here a little bit bigger than what I'm currently doing. And so I wanted to tap into that. So about 2.5 years ago, I started freelancing, right? So I stopped working full-time for a company, and I said, okay, let me just go out, test the waters and just see how it is, right? Like, honestly, it was like a roller coaster. I had some months where I'm like, oh my God, like I never thought I could make this much, 10, 12 grand months. And like for somebody freelancing, you're like, holy shit, like, okay, there's.
But then did you also have months that was like 2 grand maybe?
Exactly.
Ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Right.
That is the scary part.
I knew that without even talking about this before. I just knew it. We've worked with so many people where it's the same story over and over again. They're like, oh, I did 15K, but then last month I did 1,500. It's like, what happened to your income?
Exactly. So you become like a squirrel, right? And you're like trying to set, okay, you're like, okay, so like, I can't even enjoy the months where I'm making 10 to 12 because I'm like, now I have to stash this away, or I have to invest it in something that's going to help me make more money to continue keeping that going, because it's like a constant grind.
Yeah.
When you're a freelancer, right? Because you're just a guy with a camera, you're not a company or an agency. And so they don't feel comfortable allowing you to do more than like one-off shoots or events and things like that, because they're like, okay, how are they going to handle this if it's just a guy, right?
Right.
So that's kind of where I got to. I was like, okay, it can't just be a guy. I've got to be an agency or a production company, more of a force that has legs to it, not just me with a camera, right?
Completely, right? But one thing I will say, I want to challenge you a little bit on the mindset that you just shared with me, right? And you may be 100% correct where it comes to like, hey, people want to work with an agency, but there are people who also want to work with a one-man army. So even though you technically may eventually, you're like, hey man, I want to have my own agency, all the props to you, right? Because there is no right or wrong way. If you want to remain a freelancer, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to continue doing 9 to 5, there's nothing wrong with that. But you want to build a real digital marketing agency, which is a real company, right? But understand the cards you're dealt with right now and use them, like just leverage it to the highest level. So even though your dream clients, your ideal clients may not necessarily want to work with a one-man army, there are people who will, and they are people who will pay you a lot of money, right? So that you can take some of that money, invest it into the right, skill, not only for yourself skills, but maybe hire some, hire the people, softwares, whatever it is to help you get to that next level.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of that little adjustments in the way you think.
Yeah, absolutely. And, not to say I haven't tried working with people who like paid me a decent amount of money and then wanted to, it always comes down to that point where they're like, can I hire you in-house? Right?
Dude, what's funny is I literally thought about the same thing.
So that's what that road ultimately led to every single time. And so I got to that point, like you were saying, where I was like, okay, how do I avoid that? And so I started going with 3 to 6 month contract. I got to the point where I started being okay with saying no to working with people because like, a couple grand sounds great, but I'm like, okay, I need to know that I'm going to have a couple grand for at least 3 months so I can continue to build the operations side of things, hire out an editor and know I can continue to pay them, things like that. Right.
Interesting. Okay. So currently, like, with where you're at, I'm curious to know your strategy, right? You told me earlier off camera, you were like, hey, I want to get to 20K a month. Okay. How do you plan on doing that?
Yeah, good question. So right now, what I've found that's allowed me to kind of take on a little more clients is outsourcing some of the editing, right? And it's been a hard process because you can't just hire anybody. So I've had to vet editors, right? But I found this company who I met through shooting at events, right? I met this guy named Ryan Johansson, and he works with a company called HomeSourced. And what they do is they essentially kind of find you applicants for a specific role. And they're based in the US, but they have warehouses in the Philippines. And so they've got like 2 different warehouses. They sent me like, I think 8 different applicants, reviewed, did interviews. And then finally, this guy ended up working out for the editing position. And so he's able to help me offload a little bit of that work. So now I can say, okay, now I have more time where I don't have to edit. I can be shooting, or I can find the time to hire a videographer now.
Yeah.
Right.
I like how you're thinking because it's like a lot of times people in your shoes, what they start doing is they get a little greedy. And even us, like I remember, because it's like, okay, you make around that 10K, 5, 10, 15K a month. You're like, okay, well, what if I just do all the work and I keep most of the profits? Okay, you can. But then what happens is the most valuable asset is your time. There's a reason why we as a company do anywhere from 20 to 35K a day without me having I'm not even involved in the business anymore. I go to some of the meetings and they're like, we don't need you, sir. And I'm like, I'm the CEO, right? But that's a real...
sure about that?
Exactly. Like, I don't even know some of the things anymore, right? I was literally on Friday, I was talking to someone and they're like, my brother who runs the sales team was like, dude, we don't do that anymore. I was like, oh, when did we switch? It was like a while ago. I was like, oh man, I'm getting out of it. But that is the beauty, right? And again, this is the business I wanted to build, right? You can build a business of however you want to do. But I wanted to build it in a way where it's like, I'm completely hands off if I wanted to. Literally a week from today, like today's Monday, right? Literally a week from today, I'm going to be on a plane. We're going to Prague, Europe. From there, we're going to go to Dubai. 2.5 months, just gone.
It's a rough life.
Right? But no, I mean, it took 8 years, man, to build this up, right? Yeah. So for you, it's like the biggest, I guess you could say, golden handcuffs, because a lot of people watching this, they may be 9-to-5ers, right? You may be feeling like you're stuck at a 9-to-5. You can also be stuck as a freelancer or even a business owner, man. There's another step to this. As a business owner, you have so many different hats and you're like, what do I do, right? If they're not skilled in it, that's why getting the right skill sets, for you is going to be everything. Yeah. And when I say skill sets, I don't mean holding the camera in a certain way. You are already really good at that. But now what you need to start stepping into is becoming the company owner and the company CEO. How do you leverage the power of leverage, right? Just like you said, you found from 8 editors, you hired 1. Really good job, because it's like, a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm good at editing. I'll just either quickly teach someone or they should already be good at it. No, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. How long did it take you for you to get really good at your skill set? A long time.
Question, dude. A long decade.
A decade. And here's the biggest thing. And I still continually, even myself, I make this mistake over and over again. I have this false limiting belief where I believe that anyone I hire should be better than me at it. That is the goal. That should be the North Star. But man, it's rare. It's so rare.
I think Brad Lee says this.
Yeah.
You know Brad Lee, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a good reel. And I used to like work with Jeremy, and Jeremy worked with Brad. But there's a reel where he's talking about that. He's like, yeah, I have 5 PhDs. I hired each one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like he doesn't even. I don't think he graduated college. You know, he doesn't have a degree.
100%.
Hired people who are smarter than him for those positions. So that's what I'm kind of like trying to apply, but it's so hard when you're in the middle of it because you're like you said, you want to keep the money and try and be like, okay, now I can live a little nicer, but it's like you're not at that point yet.
Completely. So which is why it's really important to understand and be aware, because a lot of times I remember when we were building our business, we were doing, I think like 75K a month back then, but we were so lost and no one had told us to think like this. Yeah. And the idea is to do high leverage activities, revenue generating activities, and using the power of leverage, right? As the company owner, as a CEO. Well, what's the number one, let me ask you this, in your opinion, what's the number one, give me like the top 3 things that you can do right now to spend the least amount of time, effort, money, resources to get the maximum results. What do you think?
Like I was just saying, outsource more editing, right? Bring on somebody who can help me maximize efficiency.
Right, you can do that though, but so the thing is, the way you're thinking is like how everyone thinks. You're thinking on fulfilling demand that doesn't really even exist that much.
Right. Yeah.
You see what just happened there? Instead, it's like, okay, well, I'm not saying that's not an issue. That is an issue. But instead, it's like, okay, how can I land high-paying clients?
Exactly.
Okay, but it's not only, okay, people may think it's lead generation, which is the worst thing that, unfortunately, these gurus and all these course creators have told you about. Yeah. Leads, garbage. We don't give a shit about leads. Sorry. It's about buyers. It's about the right type of clients. I'm sure you work with clients who paid you maybe like $1,000 a month, who are just nightmares. Right? But a client who may pay you $5K a month, they'll be very good. The easiest. So, but that's the key.
Do what you do. And I'll pay.
Correct. But that's the key. See, most people optimize just for clients.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, no. We optimize for the right type of clients. How do you think I'm just over here shooting with you? Just, I'm still working, of course, but I'm working on things that are very strategical, very high level, like shooting content and, doing interviews and all these things.
Like a longer term impact. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. But it's like, the reason why I'm really able to do this is because we have a really, really good offer, right? And once we have the offer, well, even a step before that, how do you create a Grand Slam offer? Well, you got to do some competitor research. Yeah. We have to be in the game a little bit long enough to know what works, what doesn't, what do people need right now, right? So you need to like really start to analyze that. If you don't know, hop on a couple calls of people who are potentially your competitors, indirect or direct competitors, understand who they are, what they do, what's working, what's not working, create like a Google Drive of, a folder of like, oh, these are all the plus points, these are all the weak points, and here's my little spin to it, because everything has to be unique. Like people try to rip off our offers. They spend like 5-10K on ads and they just
get nothing.
They can not a single one has succeeded.
Yeah.
Not a single one. Crazy. Right? But for us, we knew what we were good at. We knew what our competitors lacked, and it's kind of like holes, right? And we just filled those holes.
So that's a great point, because I've done a little bit of that research, like kind of like in the background. I haven't done it directly focused, if that makes sense. But based off of, like I started my business officially in January in the sense of like getting the LLC, like having a structure and saying like I'm a company, not just a freelancer anymore. Does that mean I actually have the systems set up yet? No, but I'm saying, this is me starting to do that, right? So since January, I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, the value difference in what a lot of people are hiring, like most of the video people that get hired that I've spoken to, or like when I've talked to potential clients and they say, oh yeah, I've got somebody now, they come, they shoot with me once a week. What they all lack, and this is actually a great example. So I was in the Mediterranean on a cruise ship, right? And I was shooting for one of my clients who owns a solar company. And so they did this mastermind. It was on a cruise from Athens to Barcelona, 10 days, right? A bunch of high-level business owners who were saying, this is what our lifestyle would look like if we were like billionaire business owners, right? So, you go and live that lifestyle, see what it looks like, so you get that kind of motivation and understanding of like, there's more out there, right? So I'm in the sauna on the cruise ship, and I don't know if you know much about the solar industry, but there's a gentleman named Sam Taggart. He's
Sounds familiar.
So he's like D2D expert.
Okay.
He started that.
Gotcha.
He does a lot with D2D. Like if you look up who's the best D2D salesman on Google, his name pops.
Gotcha.
Sam Taggart. So I end up sitting in a sauna with Sam. And I'm like, this is crazy because for 3 years I've been trying to have a conversation with him and it never happened.
Right.
I said in my mind, I'm going to talk to him. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I keep running into him. We're sitting in the sauna and he's telling me, he's like, okay, so I have this huge company, D2D expert, blah, blah, blah. I started, he's like, I just hired an in-house video guy and have him only handle the videos because none of the media agencies or the small media freelancers had any systems or processes. And so after he told me that, and this was probably like 4 months ago, it kind of gave me an aha moment because I'm like, this is a problem that I can solve. Instead of just being a video guy who knows how to shoot and edit, I can start adding things like, okay, we can also handle social media analytics and posting, right? What else can we do? A little bit of copy, right? We give you ideas. We give you topics for the video. We give you insight more into like your specific niche. And that's what I found was lacking. So I'm like, okay, there's a void here. I can fill this. And so that's what I've been working on since then. And since I started doing that, it's just been like, like as far as the interactions, I'm meeting more people like yourself. I mean, that's how we met.
We met at an event. So that was my next question for you is like, right now, the clients that you have is all referral based? I just knew it. I just knew it, which is amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
However, there's an end to that.
There is.
There's an end, man. It's just like, this is the end, 10K. 5K, 10, 15, you can probably get to like 20, if you like really try to maximize. For example, ask me like 10 times, like, hey, do you know anyone? Do you know? In the beginning, I'll be like, yeah, 1 or 2. And then it'd be like, okay, this guy's really serious. Let me connect him with all the friends that I have. That's a really good angle.
Well, and no, like Jason Mojo, for example, it's taken me 3 to 6 months and I started out on a higher contract with him, but I couldn't fulfill the editing quick enough. So he's like, why don't we just stick to the video? So that made me rethink things. I'm like, I really have to lock down how I handle the editing side or that's going to continue to happen and I can't scale it.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I have to really vet the editors because back then I was like, okay, I'll one-off Upwork here, do 5 edits, but then they were coming through and I need 5 revisions and boom, it kills my time.
Yeah.
And then we're back to square one and I could have just done it myself.
There we go. Yeah.
So what I just took a step back, found a good editor who can continue to handle my client's work and who is literally a part-time employee right now. You know what I mean? So it's like, instead of one-offing everything, I'm like, hey, remember this client, launch my agency. I need you to help me with this edit. Here's what I would like from it. Here's what the client likes. Here's their Instagram page, their info. And it's taking that extra step to go into the details of making it specific to that company, that brand, that person. And that's what I found has made the difference. But I need to now grow that in a way where it can multiply itself without me like having to rip my hair out because I can't be in 10 places.
For sure. What you need is resources, which is basically money. So coming back to kind of like where you're at, right? So again, you have a proof of concept, which is really, really good, right? Just getting the proof of concept for us took 2 years.
Yeah.
We couldn't land a single client.
Yeah.
So props to you for that. However, what's really important is, I'm just going to be very upfront with you, you are not a business owner.
Right.
You are a freelancer with an LLC.
Yep.
That's the reality. It's like, okay, once you understand that, it might hurt a little bit. It's like, okay, these are the cars that you had. How can you like truly step into being a real company owner and completely outsourcing yourself and like having the team kind of like run the different pieces for you? Well, number one is understanding that you have to take this offer to a cold market. When I say cold market, it's to complete strangers. A lot of the people even watching this may be the first video you're watching or the second video. But most of our clients, we never even met them in real life, ever.
Right.
We never even knew who they were like a couple days before they decided to join us. However, in their heart, you can ask most of them. They were like, this is what I've been looking for. We have an internal belief where we truly believe that our clients have been looking for us for their whole lifetime. And they just found us right now. It's because of how we create our offer. It's the niche. It's the law of attraction. Yeah. We identified who our dream clients would be, and we only go after them. We literally declined. We declined about 30 to I think 36% of people applications. People are like, I have credit card. I want it. No, we're good. You're gonna be a pain, right? I'm like, we're good. We don't have to like. In the beginning, I do understand people are just trying to grab whatever they can because they don't have a sustainable and scalable client acquisition system.
So to that point, what would you say, Zarar, is like the key to defining like what makes a good or not good client to, you know what I mean? Like, and that's it, because that I think is probably the trickiest part that I've had to learn because, dude, like, I mean, kind of like in regular relationships, you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to see the red flags sometimes when you're so close, and then sometimes you don't see them till they're too late. So Like, what would you say if you could give one piece of advice?
That's so good. That's a really good question. I mean, we've done this for so long that I swear if I even see an application come in, forget a sales call, I just know how this person thinks. You just know. But let me give you some tactical, like some actionable things, right? Once you get them on a call with you, you start to realize the type of questions they'll ask you, right? So a big part is like ask good questions, get good answers.
Yeah.
Right? If their mindset is in a way where they think long term, they're not here to just quickly cash grab. If they're here just for quick, well, that just shows you how they think and who they are as a person. So like these are some of the things you start to like understand like about people, like, oh, this guy, and literally what I said, entrepreneurship and like making a lot of money is literally just delayed gratification. If they're just looking for this quick grabs, I'm not saying those are horrible clients, but it's like sometimes it's like, man, I don't know. And I'm not saying you should definitely have high standards. 100%. We have very, very high standards, and we fire people all the time. Like, you know, that's just what it is. That's just the unfortunate reality of how it is, because then people are too slow or they're not good at what they do. So the skills really matter. That never stops. But it's a matter of like, hey, can I, like, for example, we're working together. I will fail you if I don't give you everything you need to succeed in your role. It's my failure. Right. Most business owners, they just blame the person.
Yeah, because it's easy.
I want to sit down with you, all my employees, contractors, vendors, whatever it is, like, what can I give you as a company owner and CEO to give you the best possible chance to win the quickest, most efficient way for you to do your job?
Right.
That is my job as a leader. Exactly. Most people don't even care about that. Here's what they do. They're like, oh, I need this for, you know, in your example, I'm not saying you're doing this, but a lot of people will be like, editor, goodbye. Move on to the next thing. It's like, wait, who's going to ramp this person? Who's going to train? Who's going to do the leadership? Who's going to do the daily meetings? Who's going to keep them accountable? Well, you know, I'm supposed to just hire someone and that's it. No, it doesn't work that way, does it? Yeah. Right? You want to have a real solid company? Well, you got to be a really good leader.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Facts. So that's for you. That's the next skill set. And that's one of the hardest skill sets to learn. By the way. Leadership is, you know, I'm still nowhere near. Like, I'm still constantly learning every single day, right, in the field. But for you, it's like you're really good at editing. You're really good at video side, which is really good, because now what you can have as the company owner, I truly believe that everyone should have some sort of skill sets. Doesn't necessarily need to be in that specific domain, but you need to understand at least how it's done. Because when you have an editor, he tells you give him a 20-minute raw footage. If he tells you, yeah, it's going to take me 3 weeks. Well, if you're a complete beginner, you may be like, man, what if it does take 3 weeks? But for you, maybe it'd be like, you can do it in 4 days. So you may give them 5 days, right? Because you're probably better than everyone else, right? That's just what it is. But you can properly now manage people so they're not going to BS you, right? So that's the next thing, is like accountability, tracking. And while we're doing this, getting them bought into the vision and your mission that you have. But that's your job to set up for the company. Right. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I would do on the back end. And then like I would just spend 90% of my time front end. And what I mean by this is craft an irresistible offer. Craft an offer that you are very aligned with. Don't just do it because it's sexy. Because you may be really skilled at something that any other videographer, I don't know much about the space either, but you may be very good at a specific piece that you're like, yeah, I can run circles around 99% of the people. Probably pick that because you are very good at that and you can train the next people very well as well. So craft your offer around that and try to get those type of dream clients, right? Once you're able to craft that offer, I would take that to cold market. You got to run ads. Run ads, or at least do some sort of organic outreach, but it has to be strangers. Because if it's the people that like we met at an event, we became friends, technically I'm not a client who's like a stranger. A real business is a stranger who's paying you, man.
That's true.
That's a real business, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So take that niche and maybe even go sub-niche if you have to. Identify who your dream client is, right? Really get really clear. Not just like, oh, I'll do anything video editing. No. Because everyone else and their grandma can do that. That's what they're all saying.
Yeah.
But when you're so specific, when you're like, look, I'm an eye specialist. So if you have an eye problem, don't go to a general doctor, come to an eye specialist. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So being very specific in the beginning. Now, once you start scaling, you can offer this thing, that thing, depending on the people that you have.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, be very specific. So I call this a 3S formula. It's solve a specific problem for a specific person using a specific way. So taking it to cold market is everything.
Yeah. So how would you recommend, so I'm in the middle of everything here now. Like I've got like a white label, go high level, right?
Okay.
So I can do landing pages. I've got a domain. I've got a website. But for me, the hardest part is like the congruency of all these pieces, right? Because I've tried throwing $20, $30 for a day to run an ad, see what it does, and like I'll get a couple followers and stuff like that. But like,
Followers don't pay the bills, man.
exactly,
Likes, comments, and shares.
I don't care about that,
Completely.
right? So what I care about is like, is anyone actually like booking a call?
Yeah.
And that's the part I'm getting. Like, how do I get somebody to book a call with me who's seen my ad? Because I know I can make good ads, but I think where I'm lacking is getting it to that right audience.
Okay. Very good question.
Yeah.
One of the hardest skill sets to master, but once you do it, it's all automated. Like every day we have 2 offers we run. For one of them, we do about 35 to about 45 calls a day. And then the other one, man, we're doing like 100 plus calls a day. And these are high ticket calls, right? So really like the offer is everything. Understanding who the market is, understanding the offer. Once you understand what the offer is, you got to package it in the right words, not too much, not too less, with the right type of specific words that is going to penetrate the heart and brains, both the emotional and logical side of your clients. Remember you talked about sales skills?
Yeah.
Well, that's all it is. Marketing is just an amplification of sales.
Right.
Marketing is it's like a bigger lever that you can pull, right? Because you may be really good at sales, but if you can't generate a sales call, who you're going to sell?
Exactly.
This is useless.
Right.
So take the skill sets you learned at 7th level German Manners Company and package. It's the same kind of psychology behind it, but you need to really package it in a way where a complete stranger, if they need these services, if they need this, the problem that you're solving, they're like internally, they raise their hand. That's the whole thing. Legit, we get people showing up to our calls, and even probably people watching this, you may be thinking to yourself, that's me. All the time, we hear about complete strangers are like, man, those ads, they just spoke to me. And these are strangers. Hopefully, I'm not that good looking, right? But what I do know is I know what someone is struggling with. I know who my dream client is, which that's why I'm able to speak to you guys so well, right? So the same goes for you, is identify what keeps them up at night. Really get deep in that. See, where you can screw up really is like, I just want to get booked calls. What's one step before? Leads. What's one step before? How to package it. What's one step before? Offer. What's one step before? Research. Yeah. Does that make sense? What's one step before the research?
So don't get ahead.
Identify your strengths and your skill sets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like really it takes you, like little hinges swing the big doors. And you may notice like I'm talking about some of these basic things, but that's what it is. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's becoming a master at the basics.
Facts.
Yeah?
Yeah. And there's another good question actually that kind of pops up when you said that. So like you and Christian, for example, like, I know I've struggled trying to have business partners in the past because every time it doesn't work.
That's one of the hardest things. Yeah.
So how do you, and maybe it just kind of like happened organically for you, but like if you have any advice on that, what would you say for somebody trying to like figure out if they can work with somebody and how to do it in a way where like nobody gets screwed over, right?
That's the $1 million question.
Trust.
Well, look, couple things, right? Number one is being aligned in the vision and mission we share.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, that's when all this shit comes in. Because everyone then there's just like, what happens is if you're not aligned on a mission or a vision that is bigger than you,
Pull away from each other.
What happens, pull away, but also what happens is, like if we were business partners and if we were both not aligned in the mission and vision, naturally, these are just human beings, right? Yeah. Naturally, what's going to happen is you're going to make the decisions that is best for you. I'm going to start making the decisions that is best for me. And what's going to happen at the end of the day? We're like, oh, you're screwing me over, right? And I'm like, it's vice versa, right? Because we're making decisions that is best in our best interest. No. Number one thing is like, we need to come to a level agreement of this is the vision. This is where we're headed. Are you on board or not? Probably a little bit easier than just like being so far apart. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because then, one of them ends up like trying to carry the weight, you know what I mean? Or
Exactly. And a tactical example could, probably be like, hey, look, if you eventually want to sell your company one day and me, I want to continue to work until I die, for example. There's people out there, right? Like, people love working. Well, that's not really an alignment. You know what I mean? So like knowing what the major is kind of like red flags. And again, it's not right or wrong. It just is everyone's personal priority. So me and Christian sat down and we're like, hey, this is the vision. This is the mission. And we weren't that good at it. And we developed over time. But one of the things, we never blamed each other till this day. Blake, not a single argument we've had. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not joking. You can ask him. Till this day, 8 years of doing business, we have not ever raised our voice at each other. Ever had an argument. We deal with millions of dollars. And by the way, I don't know if you notice, we are completely different people. Do you notice that?
Oh yeah, for sure.
We are like different people,
Yep.
but that's okay because we're aligned on the same vision,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So for me, that's the most important thing. If you're good at marketing or sales, try to find an operator. Or if you're good at operations, trying to find a marketing and sales guy. You guys come together, and in business, 1 + 1 = 11, right?
Yep.
So that's it, man. So you take that offer, cold market, run some ads, and we can have another session on like how to run effective ads.
Yeah.
Get leads, get booked calls, get clients, and then take some of that money, recycle it back in, and just come up with your business economics. And that's it, man. Like all you have to do from paid ads, you just have to land your first client. That's it. 5K a month. Because once you land your first client, there's like 1,000 of them sitting there. Wait,
And then everything can just run.
it just rotates.
Yeah.
Right? So you're already step one ahead than a lot of people probably watching. You've already landed clients. Right. Now we just have to take that to cold market. That's it. And you have to spend a little bit of money. Or you don't have to spend money, but you can do like organic. We have like for our clients, for example, we use invite-only software tools that we get them leads for free pretty much. And these are not just random leads, these are buyer leads. Yeah. But like some sort of lead generation system that is automated without you having to be there every day. Yeah. Set it up. Yeah. Understand it because it's one of the most important pieces of your business, marketing, right? And sales and operations, client success. But once you're able to do that, man, get your first 1 or 2 clients, you're off to the races.
Sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully next time we talk, we will see that in action.
There we go. All right. So that is the game plan to get to 20K a month and then ultimately 100K a month as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. This was just like off script. We had a couple more, hours to go. We're like, let's just do a little podcast together. Let's just, do it in person, just live, kind of like a business console of how to go from a freelancer to a business owner. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe if you guys enjoyed, and let us know what you guys would like to watch, in the near future. So we're going very heavy on content. Blake is the man and his team are behind the camera, and hopefully we can all win here.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Gerard. And for anyone who wants to find out more about my information as well, you can go to be-creativemedia.com, and you can book a consultation call on there if you want to. We can just do a discovery call, kind of figure out what your needs are for content, see if we can help you.
Highly recommend. He's a sniper at what he does. He's like tactical, very, very good. All the stuff you guys see is him. So definitely, check him out. And for the rest of you guys, see you guys later. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Good.